I made something, you guys. Something really cool. It's an arcade machine. Today I'm gonna show you how I made it and how you can make one too. Oh, hey, what's up? Thanks for clicking on the video. I'm TechDweeb. Welcome to my mom's basement. Sorry for my extra nasally voice today. I'm actually just getting over a little bit of COVID, so if I sound even more nasally than usual, feel free to tell me down in the comments how much you hate my voice, like everyone always does. But I'm super excited to make this video because I just finished a big project that I really want to show you. It's my own arcade cabinet. It's all mine, and I'm gonna show you how I made it. Lucky you. When I was a kid, way back in the 1990s, my favorite place in the world outside of my dungeon of solitude in my mom's basement was the arcade. There was something magical about arcades, you know? You stepped inside and suddenly you were in the future. With colorful screens full of robots and lasers, arcades were a feast for the senses, with the flashing lights and the booming sound effects and the smell of dweebs and geeks and dorks and nerds and cheap carpet stained with soda and nacho cheese. Ever since I was a little tech dweeb, I've wanted my own arcade machine. I'm almost 40 now, and I'm surprised and slightly ashamed that it's taken me this long to get one. I wanted it to be my arcade machine though. Not some run-of-the-mill one-up machine with Street Fighter characters on it or whatever. Something more me, something unique, something I could be especially proud of. And I'm excited to show you how I made this. And that's not all. Get this. Get this, you guys. Are you ready? Here it comes. I'm gonna give you everything you need to make your own. All the plans, the design files, all the links to all the parts and components, everything's totally free and linked below. Just watch the video to the end and you should get an idea of what's involved and whether or not it's something you'd be able to handle. And if you're so inclined, then I hope the stuff that I provided will be useful. Just let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or whatever. And subscribe while you're down there. That's always nice. So, with all that out of the way, without further delay, let's build an arcade machine. Oh yeah, arcade machine time, baby. That's what I'm talking about. My design with the measurements is available for you to download, link below. I had a local woodworking guy make the cabinet for me. I'm not much with wood. I can't be bothered with the stuff. I'm more of a silicone and tempered glass kind of guy, if you know what I mean. But it wasn't expensive to have Mr. Woodworking guy make it. He whipped this up for 240 bucks. And that was the big expense of the whole project. Everything else was pretty cheap. I gave him the design with all the measurements and stuff, and this is what he made. Exactly like I wanted it. Once it was built, the next step was to paint it. So here, watch me having fun with this paint roller. Doesn't this look like fun? Well, it's as fun as it looks. Did you know the paint roller was invented by a Canadian? It's true. See, we're good for something. It had to be orange, obviously. That's my color, my favorite color, my iconic color. I used some random acrylic paints for the orange. I didn't bother buying a can of actual orange wall paint just for a bit of orange, but I kind of wish I did because the wall paint parts turned out smoother than the acrylic parts did, especially on the button board. It's a tad scratchy on the hand, so I'm gonna put a coat of varnish on it to make it smoother feeling. I ended up doing 2 or 3 coats of this, but I didn't want it to be just orange, so I went with a 2-tone color scheme of black and orange. One thing that was important to me was to have the edges be a different color. Lots of arcade cabinets go for this design and it looks so good. I had to mask the orange areas with masking tape to keep them clean and that worked great. So the whole thing would be black with orange accents and 2 large orange areas for the button board and the marquee at the top. Speaking of the marquee, it's going to be printed on vinyl and mounted on this piece of plexiglass that the woodworking guy cut for me. I designed my own marquee in Adobe Illustrator. I'll show some sped up footage on the screen. It says, "The geek shall inherit the earth." I just love that. I guess in terms of the actual content of the artwork, I'm sort of going for the classic themes of civilization and space. I drew these 3D-ish geometric objects as part of the design that kind of ties in the concepts of video games. You know, like those old vector-based arcade games like Asteroids or Tempest or Battlezone. This is my design, but it doesn't say TechDweeb's arcade machine on it or anything. It's generic enough, so if you build a cabinet like this, you could use this for your side. I'll include a link to the design file in the description below, and you can tint this to be any color. So if your arcade cabinet is purple, you can make the side purple. That's easy to do. My only request is that you name your firstborn son after me. Little TechDweeb can carry on my legacy. I had my local print shop print the marquee on adhesive backlit vinyl, which they mounted on the plexiglass for me. This is going to be lit from behind, so that orange color should look all bright and glowy. Once I came up with the design for the marquee, I decided to carry over the same aesthetic over to the rest of the cabinet. I'm using these Posca Paint Markers, by the way. They work great. They're sort of like permanent Sharpie markers, but they come with a set with tons of colors. I had a rough plan of what I was going to do. I sketched it out on my PC. I sort of followed it while I worked. I didn't end up sticking exactly to my plan. I ended up just kind of winging it, and it worked out just fine. I even put a drawing on the top of the case. Nobody will see it because it's tucked away up top, sort of like an Easter egg. You guys get to see it though. For the buttons, I'm using a cheapo arcade button kit that I got from AliExpress. They came with all the buttons, the wires, and a controller board PCB thing that you plug the ball into. You get a USB cord. I tested them with my PC and they were instantly detected and they worked right away. However, I'm not using a PC in this arcade. I decided I'm going to use my Super Console X. I'm going to do a separate video on how I set up the Super Console X for use in this arcade cabinet, so get subscribed so you don't miss that. I'm not going to go into detail here, but suffice it to say that it worked great and it was easy to set up. One issue that I had was that the joysticks were too short. Apparently, the thick piece of wood that we used for the bottom button board was too thick for the joysticks. So I had another friend of mine help me out. He owns a machine shop, so he whipped me up these joystick extenders that I could just screw into the shorter joysticks to bring them up to the right size. It's basically just a metal plug with the right threads machined in and a reverse thread on the top bit. It screws right into the joystick handle, and they work great. But if you're doing this project, it might be easier if you just make sure your button board isn't super thick like mine is. Maybe like a half inch or a third of an inch would make more sense. And another problem with these buttons is they have these thin extrusions along the side. I think that's to help them snug in, but the wood that we used for my cabinet, it was too dense to allow them to be pushed in. So my only choice was to take these tabs off with an army knife. Took a long time, not kind of a pain in the buns to be honest, but it did the trick. Another issue I had was that I couldn't screw in the joysticks from underneath because I couldn't get a screwdriver in there. I should have had the guy who built the cabinet put a removable bottom piece so that I could easily access the underside of the button board. If you do this project, make sure that you do that. I had to drill some pilot holes and then use a ratchet with a driver attachment to get the screws in from underneath. It worked, but it was really annoying. The button kit came with 8 big buttons and 2 small ones. I only wanted 6 buttons for the main board, one on the side for select or menu button, and one on the front for start or coin button. Once the buttons and joysticks were all in place, it was a simple task of wiring them up to the controller PCB and plugging them into the USB connection. Really tight working under there. Again, I really wish I had a removable bottom piece to access this stuff without cramming my hands in where they barely fit. Whatever. It got it done eventually. Good to go. Oh, I haven't told you about the screen yet. This is an old LG monitor. It's a 24-inch 1080p with built-in speakers and HDMI. It's just perfect for using in a cabinet like this. Although I did add some extra speakers because I wanted this thing to make some noise, if you know what I mean. It's actually the monitor that I fixed in one of my earlier videos. It's a pretty simple mounting technique. I have a little piece of wood along the bottom for it to rest on. I'm using some of this metal strapping to hold it in place. Simple, but effective. For the marquee at the top, it's just a matter of slotting in my plexiglass piece that has my vinyl sticker on it into the groove slot and then putting the top piece on by lining up the groove on that. I had Mr. Woodworking guy who built the cabinet pre-drill these holes so everything lines up perfectly. There it is, in all its geeky glory. For the lights behind the marquee, I just bought a cheap LED cabinet light from Amazon. I had to drill a couple holes through here to let the cord go through because I can't have these cords get in the way of the mounting plate. This works great. It throws off tons of light and makes the side all brightly lit when the unit is turned on. On to the guts of the arcade. This is going to be powered by my Super Console X Pro emulation system. The video I made on this thing was the first video that I made on my channel. Way back, like 8 months ago. Crazy to think how far I've come since then. I'm basically a new man. Still waiting for my allergies to clear up though. This is perfect for running an arcade machine because it has HDMI that we'll need, an audio jack for the speakers, USB ports for the arcade sticks. I want to have the original controllers that came with the device also be able to be used, so I'll need to use a USB hub to let my 2 arcade controllers and 2 wireless controllers plugged in at the same time. This way I'll be able to play controller games like PS1 games that require analog input or whatever. Or if I want to play with 4 players, when my cousins come over for a visit, we can play some Turtles in Time. Can you guess which Ninja Turtle is my favorite? Yep, Michelangelo, because he's orange. That's my color, right? The Super Console X has a regular power cord, which I'll plug into my power bar, and the HDMI goes right into the monitor. And with that, it's all wired up. Everything's good to go. Light strip at the top, speakers tucked in behind the monitor, HDMI from the TV into the Super Console X Pro, speaker input plugged into the audio port on the Super Console X, and everything is powered. The only thing I didn't show is I have a Bluetooth audio receiver and splitter so that I can have music from my phone wirelessly come through the built-in speakers while gaming. That was pretty important to me. This is so cool. I'm gonna make a separate video on how to set up the Super Console X to use arcade buttons input and all the little quirks about using the system with controls like this, so get subscribed if you don't want to miss that. For now, let's just say it's easy to set up, and it works perfectly. And of course, I had to give it a test run, right? The wall mounting technique that I wanted is called a French cleat. It's basically two pieces of wood that are cut on opposite angles so that one slots into the other, and the angle makes it pretty much impossible to have it fall down, but you can pretty easily take it down if you lift it up to remove it. This Marquis arcade machine is pretty heavy. I don't know how much it weighs, but I'm gonna guess like 40 or 50 pounds. Oh, I forgot to tell you that I'm plugging this into a wireless outlet so that I can turn it off and on without any physical switches. I have this PC down here, not because it's part of this arcade, but it's covering some cords and it's also hooked up to something else that I'll show you on another day. I also added on some of these flip-up controller holders on the side. The wireless switch that controls the power is actually a flat light style switch. Well, does it work all right? Well, you tell me. Takes about 30 seconds to fully power on, and we get that kind of stupid, but also kind of cool, but also kind of long Kid Hank intro movie, and then we're right into the games. I'm not gonna do a big showcase of what it's like to game on this thing. I'll save that for the video where I show you how to configure the Super Console X to run on this sort of setup. The Super Console X Pro, it's an amazing little device to get up and gaming on a budget. It's like $100 and it comes with two wireless controllers and 256 gigabytes of games, all pre-configured and ready to play with all the screenshots or video previews, and it all just works. It has every retro system you could want up to PS1, Nintendo 64, and Dreamcast era, with a few more modern things like PSP and Nintendo DS, and you can play all your old favorite games and discover new ones that you didn't get a chance to try out when you were a baby. Honestly, there's so much gaming potential on this one device it could last you a lifetime. And it works great behind the scenes of this arcade cabinet. I couldn't be happier with how this turned out. I'm excited to show you more about how this works and plays, but this video is long enough, so I hope this was useful, or at least fun to watch. Please let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this thing? Any DIY arcade machine enthusiasts out there want to chime in with your experiences building arcade machines? Any advice on what I could do to improve? Any questions? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you down there. And while you're down there, click the thumbs up if you like the video, or the thumbs down button if you hate arcades or orange things. Subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. I make lots of videos about retro emulation, computers, other tech stuff. I hope you'll come back sometime. And as always, I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Are you kidding me?